Welcome to today's edition of Daytime Dialogues. It's my great pleasure today to welcome Rabbi Aaron Leibtag to this conversation. Rabbi Leibtag is finishing his tenure at KJBS in Chicago congregation, Kilat Jacob, Beth Samuel in Chicago, a very well-known synagogue. And in just a few days is going to be joining me as part of our rabbinic team at KINS as our associate rabbi. But I think what's most important about Rabbi Leibtag is he's one of the most talented rabbinic figures in our community, especially in his relationship with the students that he has also as the senior Rebbe at Hillel Torah North Suburban Day School. And so it's a pleasure to welcome you, Rabbi. And
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on here.
And it will be a pleasure to welcome you in just a few more days when you start working together with us. So, Rabbi, you've been in Chicago for about 15 years, a little bit less. You came originally as a member of our YU Kollel. You were an inaugural group of Avrechim in the Kollel, and you went straight over to KJBS. And you are a native of Baltimore. So as we all know, we are both out-of-towners. But tell me, what kept you in Chicago? Why didn't you head back to the East Coast like so many people often do?
It's an excellent question. First of all, it is an amazing opportunity for me. I'm well sad to be leaving my shul. We're thrilled to stay in Chicago. Chicago is very, it took us a while. And we came here 12, 13 years ago at the Kollel. But Chicago is a very unique and special community. It's a community that offers you everything, that has everything you need that might happen in a quote unquote a bigger city. But from the schools to the feeling of warmth and community, it's a very, very special place to be, special place to raise your children. And that's really one of the reasons that we wanted to stay. We developed many relationships and our kids have wonderful friends, and we feel very much at home. And I also think that in a place like Chicago, everybody feels a part of something, a part of a responsibility, a part of community that you might not get in other communities.
And your tenure at Hillel Torah, you are one of the most beloved Rebbes there at Hillel Torah. Please accept the compliment. It's well known. And one of the things that you're really expert at is maintaining relationships. And over the years you've been working at Hillel Torah, have you seen any changes in our young adults or the adolescents that you're working with?
I think there are changes. I think that the world is changing a little bit, and I think there's positives and then there's not as positives. I think the positives are you find a lot more responsibility kids might feel and more engagement. There's a lot of opportunities for them in many areas outside of school, whether through B'nai Akiva, NCSY, camps, for them to really expand and find a niche for themselves. But there's also a lot of, the technology, social media, and powers that might influence them in negative ways. And I think I personally find that they have the most honest answers. I mean, they're in it, and I actually talk with them a lot about these kind of questions, because if you really have honest conversations with them, they are very upfront with some of the challenges that they face. So I think those are the biggest ones. The world has shifted a lot in that regard, and our children are sort of in that world and have to deal with some of those obstacles.
So the largest change you're suggesting is the social media or something else?
The largest change in terms of students or younger adults?
Let's say the ones you normally teach, let's say the 7, 8, or even into high school years.
Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the challenges, but I don't know that that's a challenge unique to students. I think it's a challenge unique to everybody. And I think our students, though, well, we might remember an age where it wasn't as inundated. I think they're growing up in an age where it is more inundated. So that is definitely one of the challenges, I think, for students. I think that we also are facing a lot of, if we're talking about challenges, if we're talking about good things, there's a lot of spiritual apathy in a lot of people, that in the sense of they want to find meaning and connection. And how do we find that? That's true very much for adults. And I think very much true. It's this week's parsha. Rabbi Lam says that when the Makkah of Barad, it says that those that didn't take the animals into their homes, asher lo sam libo. So Rabbi Lam says that's not the opposite. It says those that are Yirei Hashem took their animals inside, but those that didn't were lo sam libo. He says it's not. It means they were indifferent. They just didn't care. And I think that's a major, major challenge that we have today, most among adults and for sure among children. And that's really what I see as a challenge, that you not have a struggle of necessarily the whys of what we're doing, but the passion, the relationship, the connection to the things that we're doing.
But is it really, you're quoting Rabbi Lamb. I would assume that sermon that he delivered was somewhere in the 1950s or 1960s.
Yes.
So it's not a today issue. It's been going on for
but I would say that the reason I think it's different is that maybe when Rabbi Lamb gave it, you probably couldn't get a Marav Minyan at Chicago Center at 11:30 at night, and you couldn't find kosher food in every single corner of the world. I think that we have such a plethora of opportunities that we're doing a lot more. And maybe since Rabbi Lamb gave that drasha, there's more davening and more tefillah and more mitzvah opportunities. But I think the connection to why we're doing it, the meaning of why we're doing it, the spirituality behind it, I think is something that is very, very important. I think something that adults struggle with. And I think that's something that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, this push to, to find meaning. And within the world of halacha, I don't like to separate the two. I think they're very much the same. The meaning behind what I'm doing, the connection behind what I'm doing, even if I don't find it meaningful, but that relationship piece is very, very important. I think kids today, that is something that they're looking for.
So what do we do? It's when you talk about the search for meaning, how do we help them find meaning where we weren't successful 30 years ago and 40 years ago or 10 years ago?
I don't know that we weren't successful. I think we're very successful. I think that we have to break it into different levels. But I think for one is that, understanding that there's obedience in Torah, and that's part of the beauty of Torah, that I'm doing something that's a higher calling, that even when I'm and this, I really, really believe that even when I'm doing something that I don't find so meaningful, right? Like not every one of my Shemona Esreis, don't share this, is not like Ne'ilah. But I do it even though it's not so meaningful every single time because there's purpose behind it, because Hashem asked me to do it. And I think that is part of the fix to his relationship piece, is understanding that I'm doing something, and that's why halacha is so important. So I think if we build up more than just having these like moments, but having consistency and having meaning behind that consistency, I think is very crucial. Like brachos. So sometimes I talk with my students about brachos. So some people are very good with brachos, some people aren't so good with brachos. It's apathy. It's not that, I'm going to eat this apple and I don't care that God, of course not. But if a person would be careful with brachos, there's 100 times a day that God is more part of their lives. And I think that's part of the key, the consistency behind what we do and the meaning behind that consistency.
So how do you teach that to young adults? We can give most of it, but how do you teach it?
So I think you teach it with consistency. I can't tell you that I've done it great. I think you do it consistency. You do it with, like I love learning. I'm still not a great Gemara learner, but I love learning Gemara, and I love learning Gemara at a high level with my students. I wouldn't say that doing that is not finding meaning. It's all finding meaning, and I think making sure that we actually share that while we're teaching, that we don't separate. Sometimes, and I'm at fault for this also. We sometimes tend to separate. Like we're going to learn. Then we're also going to have like question and answer days. And I do that. And I think it's important that students have an opportunity to ask questions. But if we sometimes separate like the learning from the relationship piece, so I'll learn, but then I'll have a kumzitz, which I love, and I'll do this and I'll do that. They're great, but they have to blend it together. That the learning that I do, the davening that I do, the brachos that I make, the lamdus that I learn is all part of that relationship. And I think teachers should be very straightforward with that. They should share that we're learning Torah, we're part of the Masorah. And when we learn Torah, it's why we find sometimes you go to Israel and the boys or girls, they spend time in a beis medrash or a beit midrash, whichever way you want to call it, and they find more meaning because the more that they spend in that world, the more that it becomes a real connection.
So you went to Shalavim, and after that you were at YU. Before that you were at TA in Baltimore. Is there one Rebbe that you had who is like who is the inspiration for the way you teach, the way you interact with others?
Well, because I know that my mother's listening. One of my main inspirations is my father. My father is a massive Talmid Chacham. He's always learning. We can share more in Mir Hashem when I come over time. But my father's always learning. He's done Daf Yomi numerous times. especially when it was tax season. He was 45 blot ahead so that he wouldn't fall behind. But I'm very close. I had high score Rebbeim, but I really think that in my life, between Rabbi Neuberger and Rabbi Penner and Rabbi Baum, those three mentors of mine have taught me in different ways how to be a Rav, how to be an educator. Neuberger is one of the greatest poskim and leaders that we have. Rabbi Penner is one of the most creative, and speakers. He is in my head when I give drushos all the time. I hear him talking, and Rabbi Baum, who I was his intern rabbi for a while and learned from him and still learn from him. So those three together really have helped me become who I am as a rabbi.
And so, about of the three, who's helped you become the teacher that you are?
The teacher that I am, honestly, Mrs. Tamar Freeman. Mrs. Tamar Freeman, and if whoever sees her should tell her that I gave her a shout out. She is one of the best educators in the world. And I went to Torah hoping that she would help me. And she did, from classroom management, which I'm still terrible at, to lesson planning, and to just how to engage students with doing less. Let them do more, you do less. And that's really, and the Rabbi Penner piece of creativity and excitement and relationship.
So you're on vacation now from Hillel Torah. You're coming back next week. Is there something special you have for when students come back from vacation, how to get them back into learning?
So I am of the approach, I think from when I was in school, that I like to get right back into learning. They've had 2 weeks off. And I think sometimes to ease in doesn't always work. I think they had 2 weeks off. So we come in and I'm prepared next week to do, some intense, especially my 8th graders, a high level Gemara, to do some intense stuff, because I think that's the best way. I think if you let them ease back into it, it's another week of vacation. And I don't know what the academy approach is. So I'm not.
Ida Crown's approach is every teacher has their approaches. I'm sure.
There you go. That's generally my approach.
And at KJBS, there have been challenges, but there are some very, very close relationships you've developed over the years at Peterson Park and in Lincolnwood in our communities, but in the general Jewish community. How do you keep those relationships going?
I don't have a secret. I think it's just trying to stay in touch with people. Some people might call it stalking. But reaching out, if someone's going through something, difficult, to keep reaching out to them, even if it's a text, a phone call, a visit. Students that have left my classroom, I create WhatsApp groups for those that are in Israel, and they come back, and just, trying to always reach out as best I can to people and to meet them and to be with them and to help them. And of course, Rabbi, you're much more senior rabbi than I am, but anytime you help a family or an individual through some kind of experience, life cycle, positive or negative or sad or happy, you build a much, much closer relationship. And, that's just trying to reach out as best I can.
So you've been a Rav now for more than a decade. Why did you want to become a rabbi?
I honestly wanted to become a teacher. That was when I was in high school. I wanted to go into chinuch. And I then realized that as a Rav, when I was more like in Shalavim, that a Rav has the opportunity to reach a wide range, both adults and children, in a classroom, which I love being in. As you mentioned, you're more locked in an age group. But as a shul, you can get from older to younger and everything in between. And so that was a big, attraction to me. And I love working with children. I love working with adults. And also that relationship piece to me is very, very important, to be able to build that over time and over years, to be with people and develop relationships, see their children grow, help them through whatever I can. That was really the most appealing thing to me, that relationship piece. So I love teaching Torah.
No, that's obvious. What do you think has been the most creative shir you've ever given? What was the topic?
Creative shir? I mean,
the people spoke about the most.
Yeah. A big thing that I've done in my shul was Shavuos. Shavuos, I don't really bring in other speakers. My shul is necessarily an area that has lots of other people around. So we do this. I got from Rabbi Penner. We do a theme. So every year we do a theme of learning. So I've done Jews and non-Jews, and I've done Mashiach and Emunah. And over the course of a Yontif, we've covered 10, 11, 12 shiurim on a topic. So we've done Islam, and we've done, some certain things like that I think are, exciting. I actually give a Hilchos Shabbos here once that I'm still getting, some pushback for it because, people had to go buy different kind of hot plates, but I think they're much happier that they did. But I think Shavuos has really been, an exciting time for us. And the Purim spiel, of course.
The Purim spiel, for those who haven't seen the KJBS Purim spiel, it's online, YouTube, I believe.
Yeah, sure. Check them all out.
They're hilarious. I'm hoping that we'll be able to recruit some of your great writers and producers over to KINS when you move over as well, because that's something we haven't had. Your kids have grown up in Chicago. So first of all, do they say pop or soda?
They don't say pop because I don't know. I know anybody says pop, and they don't say east or west because I don't understand it either. So,
but do they say roof or roof?
As a Baltimorean, my father says roof, but we say roof.
Okay, so we haven't done our job yet.
Not yet.
But your kids have grown up in Chicago. Do you think they'll end up staying in Chicago?
It's a great question. I would imagine they would. I think they like it here. They have lots of friends here. They like the community. So I hope so. I'm betting on it.
Well, I hope you're matzliach with that.
Thank you.
And in terms of where you see the future of our community, what do you see? You've been watching Chicago Jewry for a decade. Where do you see it headed? Do you see it growing, getting stronger, weaker, different, moving? What kind of thing?
I think number one, it's definitely growing. It's definitely growing. I mean, all the communities are growing. Rogers Park, Lincolnwood, Peterson Park, Skokie, everything is growing. Baruch Hashem. I think numbers are up, which is a good thing. I see a lot more happening in terms of programming and organizations and opportunities for adults, for kids. I mean, there's so much. I think I remember back, I don't know, I don't know if anybody still uses that ATT community calendar, but you would sign up for an event because you don't want somebody taking that night. But thank God now there are many, many organizations and many events and many opportunities. And I think that's a big sign of growth. I think we're seeing a little more like a lot of cities are seeing, and that's, a separating sometimes, not much as a blend of what might have been like 15, 20, 30 years ago in terms of what a community looked like. A school or a hashkafa, whatever that exactly means, might live more in that specific city. But that's the beauty of Chicago. I think that it's not separated so much. Everything sort of still is, works together and comes together. I think we saw from this, unfortunate with COVID, but we did see we had meetings of Rabbanim from across the spectrum. And I think that as it grows, though, it's growing, but it's not separating people that we're not working together.
And so how do what's the secret sauce of Chicago that you think people aren't as separated as in other communities?
Great question. I should ask you that question. You've been here much longer than I have. I don't know. I think that Chicago is big, but it's not big in that it doesn't feel like a community. So I think that everybody feels a part of something. That could be a school, that could be a shul, that could be a camp, that could be a kollel, an organization. But really, everybody is involved in something. And I think when you do that, you do feel a sense of responsibility and accountability towards the tzibur. And you have people that might live in whatever, Skokie, Rogers Park, doesn't make a difference. But they're all working towards the same thing, whatever that organization or school might be. And I think that's part of the secret to Chicago. I think that everybody feels a part of something here.
So, I mean, we're big, but not too big. So we're able to.
And you're not too small.
Not too small. Yeah. And in terms of things that you're involved in outside of shul and school, which doesn't allow for a lot of time, what are your passions, whether it's community involvement or hobbies?
Right. So I like sports, first of all. I'm a big sports person. Only if my teams are winning. If my teams aren't winning and my student, what?
Can I ask which ones they are? Because I have a feeling.
Well, they're the Ravens who are not winning right now. The Orioles who have not won in a very, very long time. So I allow my children can be Bears fans. That's fine. As long as they're not Yankee fans, everything is fine. If they're Yankee fans, then I'll probably disown them. So I'm involved, obviously, in the CRC. I'm on the Geras Commission of the CRC. So that's has been a wonderful schus for me to be able to learn with Gerim, involved in the RCA. And, in different capacities, or, in different organizations. But outside of that, between my kids and between, those other organizations and shul, that's basically most of my time.
And assuming that your mother is watching at the moment, and I haven't looked at the list of watchers, but she'll watch this for sure. how do you explain to your parents that you left them?
Well, I mean, we'll have to figure out who left who. But all of my family right now, thank God, is in Israel. They all live in Modi'in. So, but thank God they're very, very happy. My sisters, when I moved to Chicago, my sisters moved to Modi'in. My parents made Aliyah a few years later. And thank God. You know Rabbi Sobel, right, Rabbi?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's my father is very close to Rabbi Sobel, is an amazing, amazing Rav in Modi'in.
And so that's the answer.
That's the answer.
That everyone is left. And you're
but we're all, thank God. We all stay in touch with each other.
And your wife has been volunteering for the longest of time now with Refuah 311 that I know, and she's been doing amazing work.
No, now she's there more full time. Yes, really? Thank God, an amazing organization. So she's there every day, one of their workers, and one of the reasons we really wanted to stay was because we love it here, and we've developed many close relationships and do a lot of stuff in our home, and it's it developed over time. It progressed over time to the point where this is where we wanted to be long term.
And if you were speaking to a smicha student in YU who had different paths available, would you feel comfortable telling them to go into the Rabbanus?
I would. I think there's a lot of things that I know now that I would share, but I do. I think if you're passionate about it, it's an amazing thing. I'm sure, as you know, there's a lot of stressful moments and a lot of difficult moments, but in the end, I don't know of another position that provides me as much sipuk hanefesh and as much joy, even during the most difficult times, to be able to be a Rav. But I think it comes to passion, and it comes to being able to want to deal with a lot of the things that you deal with as a rabbi.
Well, that includes websites and webinars and all sorts of other things along the way as well.
That's right. That's right.
And when I received smicha at the yeshiva and the HTC, one of the jokes was that just remember the Rosh Yeshiva's phone number is on the back of the smicha. Don't forget to look it up. Did they have similar comments to you when you were getting at YU?
Similar comments. I think that they've probably since I got smicha, they've really revamped the smicha system in terms of preparing guys going into Rabbanos, and it's like what to deal with in terms of counseling, and a lot of this obviously you can't do until you're actually in the position. But I think that they've given the mentors, and they provided me the support system, and continue to provide me the support system for anything that I need.
And that's where your relation with Rabbi Penner came?
My relationship with Rabbi Penner is from YU, and also for the longest time until he moved recently, he was my in-laws next door neighbor, mamish next door neighbor. So we developed a very, very close. I stayed at his house many times. So Baruch Hashem, had developed a very close relationship with him.
And so it works out very well that he is the Dean of REITs as well.
Yes, it did. It did work out well.
So you have the Dean of REITs, you have one of the senior Rabbanim in America from Teaneck, and you also have one of the senior Rosh Yeshivas at YU to help guide you every step of the way.
I told my wife all the time, if she got me to Rabbi Penner, that's all there really, that was a major draw was going out with her, was that the next neighbor was Rabbi Penner. So it worked.
It sounds like one of those Dayenu moments. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Just of that piece. And you're going to be, please God, in the near future, moving to West Rogers Park.
Yes.
And joining and coming on board at KINS. And it's a whole new experience for you and for me, and also obviously for Rabbi Bressler, our assistant rabbi, because until now it's been me and an assistant. And now we have a team. How would you describe that to people? How you hope that we'll be able to be together working?
I think it's tremendously exciting. I'm very excited. We've met a number of times already, and I think we all already have gotten off to a great start. But I also think that, as you asked about the growth of Chicago, I think that, as we've discussed already, there is so much to do, programming-wise, learning-wise, and to really build out this brand and to what it can do within the larger community. And as I commented to you after our first meeting together, just the ability to have a team to work together, to not just divide and conquer, but to brainstorm together, to implement together, to really raise this to the next level is really, really an exciting opportunity for me, and I think hopefully for the community.
No, I'm sure it will be. I think the only thing that you and I have disagreed on is, should I allow myself to be called a senior rabbi? But I said I'm not old enough for that yet.
Right.
So,
Right.
so we're just part of the rabbinic team
Yeah,
as
but
well.
it's exciting to be part of a team.
No, it is for those who are watching and who are balabatim and don't understand. Sometimes the life of a rabbi can be a little lonely. In fact, some rabbis, their best friends are people out of town, because in town you have to be on stage at all times. So this is a very exciting kind of concept of having three rabbis working together to be able to seek one unified goal as well. What do you're going to be starting with us? January 8th will be the first Shabbos. You'll be at both KINS North and also at KINS Main. KINS North will be the primary focus of a lot of your efforts as well, even though it'll be the total of the experience. Have you thought about the drasha for the first week yet?
I have already,
Oh yeah.
but that's all I can say.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, right now it clocks in about 43 minutes.
That should be fine, and we'll schedule it for right after Kiddush. I'm
Excellent.
sure
That's the
everyone will
best
stay
time.
for the extra 43 minutes.
Yeah.
Wait, when you're writing a drasha, do you normally come up with an idea, come up with a Dvar Torah, or it just kind of happens?
I don't know. It kind of happens. I mean, I have a lot of files and I save a lot of, I save a lot. And sometimes if I have like this Shabbos, an idea that I want to share, then I'll probably find Torah to go along with it. Or sometimes you find an amazing idea and you find a message to go. I happen to think that's the easier way. Find an amazing piece of Torah. And find the message. And sometimes it's great to just share a piece of Torah and a really, really cool idea. But this next week I have an idea, and therefore I found some Torah to go along with it.
I'm sure it'll be wonderful. On my computer, I have a file called In Process.
Yes,
which is just whenever I have an idea or I come across something that I'm not going to use right away, I label it so that I hope I can find it again. You have the same, I gather?
I have the same both online, like digitally. I keep stuff, links to different things. And I also have on my computer, a file that says Drush ideas divided up by Parshios.
So you have same thing. I'm sure we've all learned these same kind of processes as well. Is there something that for the people from KINS who are watching that you want to tell them in particular?
About the drasha?
But no, not about the drasha. In general, about what.
Yes, I am very, very much looking forward to meeting everybody, to getting to know everybody. As Rabbi mentioned, I very much enjoy building, as my wife does as well, these relationships. And I just look forward to meeting everybody, getting to know everybody, learning Torah, and really seeing what where this can all take us to the next level. It's very, very exciting.
No, and I share all of those feelings as well, Rabbi. I'm looking very much forward to this, because sometimes you do things that people don't expect, and those are the best things you can possibly do, because to do what's expected can get awfully boring at times.
Yes, yes, this is exciting. It's a whole new venture, and I think it has a lot of tremendous opportunities ahead.
I'm looking forward to those as well. And in terms of shiurim, what are your favorite shiurim to give?
So it's funny you mentioned that. So I love all different kinds. I've done a parsha shiur for 12 years running. Last night it started as a women's parsha class, and then over Zoom it evolved to an everybody parsha class. I think parsha classes are great. I think it provides you not just vortlach and divrei Torah, but to get textual, to understand mefarshim, and I think it helps people their Shabbos, their appreciation of Torah. I think it depends on the crowd. Something I learned from Rabbi Neuberger was to try to have a niche for everybody. So I've done, we've done Navi Shurim, and, I grew up in a more yeshiva system. So I, learned Yehoshua 17 times and never knew that there was anything past there. So for about 8 years, we did a Navi Shir. We've done Gemara Shurim and a mini series. I happen to love mini series. I think that it's a nice focus through a few weeks on a specific topic. One very interesting thing we did was called Wine and Wisdom. We did, different countries and the wines from that country and the history of the Jews of that country. I think anything that you can really sort of zoom out a little bit and understand the more beauty of what we're doing and the meaning by what we're doing. And I think it depends on the crowd. I think it depends on the crowd.
I know that we have scheduled hopefully a mini series. I think in Hilchot Shabbat coming up, or maybe Hilchot Shabbos. I'm not sure which.
Depends who's giving it. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. That'll be coming. It was supposed to start right away, but we're holding off a little bit because of this latest surge, which, please God, will go away very quickly.
Please God.
Yeah. Rabbi, I appreciate your time. You are, please
anytime.
Send to the Balabatim and KJBS my thanks for your half hour today.
Thank you.
And my a special thanks to the Balabatim of KJBS for making this new partnership available to us and to the entire Chicago Jewish community. It's exciting, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful new
Yes.
experience together. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Have a wonderful.
Thank you very much,
wonderful
Rabbi.
day.
Have a great day,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.